Hello, everybody. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. My name is Martin Loffers. I'm the Chief Trend Watcher of Supply Chain Media. I'm also the Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Movement. That's a bi-weekly newsletter and also a quarterly magazine and a huge group on LinkedIn. I think over 50,000 members. And last but not least, I'm also the architect of the IT subway map, of the European version. We'll talk about it later. In the next 60 minutes live, we have a webinar and we're going to talk about real-time visibility and AI in the supply chain. And with me, I have an expert on this matter. And so here you see me on the left, that's me, without glasses. And right, you have Elmer Spruit. He is a VP Transportation Management EMEA of Descartes, supply chain software vendor. We'll talk about it later. And he has a background, working in the consulting and also the services, been working at Accenture and also a digital freight forwarder. And since 2021, you have been responsible for the VP transportation part of Descartes. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Martijn. Great to be here.
And you have also a background in physics and astronomy. So I was wondering, is it still applicable? Do you look at the stars and you see possibly similarities in your current work?
Well, sometimes certainly nowadays it feels like stuff might be imploding, right, with all the changes that there are in supply chain. But real black holes or stars are not part of my daily job. No.
No, all right. First, some practicalities. So the audience, well, this will be recorded, and we will make sure this webinar will be available on YouTube. The PDF will be also made available within 48 hours. So the audience is on mute. So you have different ways to interact. So you see the chat functionality on the right hand side, and people can respond to that. But I will track one functionality below. You see the small text bubbles on the right hand side, the Q&A. If you have questions to Elmer, please use the Q&A functionality. I will track this functionality. If these questions are in line of the discussion I will be having, I will ask these questions immediately. If not, we will have a Q&A at the end. And also beyond that, after the whole hour, we have an extra 30 minutes. So we'll be sitting down in a virtual lounge. So you can sit down with Elmer and myself, and then you can have a further conversation with us. So as of now, we will put off the camera, and then you can enlarge your screen, and then you have a better view on the slides. So first, like I mentioned, I'm the architect of the SCM IT Subway Map Europe. This is the latest version. This being released, actually 2 weeks ago. And this is 25 version. As you see here, you have all kind of subway lines, ERP, WMS, TMS, etc., based on actual implementations in Europe. So it's not what they are providing, but what they have implemented in reality. So basically, this is an overview of proven vendors in Europe. And to zoom in, you see Descartes, and Alma will explain it right after this. But Descartes has different kind of subway solutions, or supply chain software solutions represented on the subway lines. So you see warehouse management, you see real-time transport visibility. We'll talk about it later. Also, freight procurement and management platform, global trade management, and transport planning. So these are the subway lines represented on the subway map. Something to add on your side on this before you get to your company overview, Elmar?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, happy to be here, and indeed we are building for the last 30 years a broad portfolio of solutions. So many stops for people to visit us, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe you can tell us a bit more about your heritage and where you come from and how you're spreading the world and delivering solutions.
Yeah, no, certainly, and I think that's important to understand that we're a global player focused on logistics software, as the dots in the subway map indicate, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are a publicly traded company, so certainly in some of the some solutions like real-time visibility, that's almost uncommon, I would say. We are debt free, we are growing, we have publicly available financial numbers that we publish every quarter. We're now at a nice revenue of 650 million. But I think it's good to know our background, and certainly if you're considering a partner, right? It's important to know where we are coming from and what we're doing. We're not always that vocal about what we do, as we dedicate a lot of our efforts specifically to our solutions. But in the end, it's also important that, of course, we get the word out about why our customers continue to choose for our solutions. So great to talk today a bit more about carrier connectivity and real-time visibility and what we're doing with AI in those domains.
And that's good to mention, like you mentioned already here, over 20 years of presence in this world of global logistics and transportation, because that, as you know, that's a compact world. We talk about it later. So maybe, like you mentioned, there are newcomers on the market, but you have been around for a while. And especially we're going to talk about real-time transport visibility. That used to be very hot during the start of COVID. It's still hot, but maybe not so much in the center of attention lately, but still very important. But maybe you can tell a bit more how you are regarded, and you have some information here, and it's good to discuss it.
Yeah, and I think as Descartes, we made a decision to not participate in the typical Gartner reviews, but we do have our users review us, right? So I thought it may be interesting to share some of their feedback. On the right, I think that's one of those platforms out there, G2, where users can rate, right? So there's no payment from us. They are just sharing their experience with using our Descartes MacroPoint solution. We have the highest score on that platform. So that's a great feedback that we receive from our users. At the other side, and maybe the left-hand side of this slide, right? For some of our trackings, we also use a mobile app. If the onboard unit or the ELD unit in the truck is not available, truck drivers can download our app, and we use that to track the truck. And again, as for any other app, users can review it. And we have now more than 2 million downloads. So that's a milestone, but maybe we're even more proud of a relatively positive score and rating that we get from our users. So this is a very positive signal, and again, also it indicates the huge size that we have with over 3,000 customers using our real-time visibility platform.
Yeah, when you look into the numbers, the number of reviews, 140,000. That's huge compared to the second one. So I don't know if you have pushed the Google Store reviews that much, but that does say something. This huge amount of reviews is a I think a positive side to see that you are around already for a lot of years, and that you are having high reviews on this matter.
Yeah, no, and we're very dedicated to the customer. So if we agree to track something, and let's say the standard way via the onboard unit or TMS from the carrier does not work, we still would like to reach close to 100% tracking. So then the mobile app is a tool that can help us in such cases. Yeah, and if you are indeed for 20 years pushing that, then you build up a huge network and user group that's using that.
Yeah. All right, and we'll talk about how to get this information, to get this real-time transport visibility, and also how to use AI later on. But maybe first you can explain the complexity of this world in logistics.
Yeah, and I think that's as people are more in logistics for a longer time, they understand, but it still sometimes surprises at least me on the number of people that are involved, certainly in global supply chains across all the different transport modes, right? It's transport per definition, I would say, is something that requires communication between parties, but it's not actually the sort of the sender and the receiver, there's many more parties involved, from carriers, warehouses, other stakeholders, suppliers, customers that want to know what's going on. And unfortunately, still today, lots of that exchange or communication is manually or semi-manually, or at least in some flows. So that's a huge challenge that we try to solve for our customers. As more as a consumer, you're used that information. If you order a toothbrush online, you get status data, etc. So you would expect the same for your container or your pallet or whatever you ordered from your supplier. So the expectations have increased, and yeah, we're offering that similar experience for companies, let's say, as they get often as a consumer.
Yeah, and basically, normally we would think that logistic is just the matter of transporting goods from A to B. So how complex could it be? But in reality, you have freight forwarders, you have outsource your transport to carriers or 3PL or 4PL. So there are different layers, and that makes the world very complex. And as you see here, all these kind of exclamation marks with all this error possible. That is the real world. It's not just A to B and that's it.
Yeah, yeah, and certainly for bigger companies, right? If you have thousands of orders per week, even, or some cases per day, you want to consolidate, combine, put them all together, split them, and there's many ways that software can help you to optimize your total spend and consolidate. But that requires a lot of alignment with all those parties on, hey, we need to bring it together at a certain point, ship it to another point, maybe then split it again. Indeed, a warehouse, a truck, maybe an ocean carrier or an airport in between, another warehouse or rails track. There's so many different parts that are needed to get the relatively simple, indeed, in your mind, from A to B transport executed.
Yeah. And by the way, your business in the middle, like you see here, that could be either a cargo owner, a manufacturing company, a wholesale company, or either a retail company, or that could be a 3PL company. So, that's is even more complicating the whole stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and certainly is a lot of forwarders also use many carriers, right? So it might
Yeah.
be sort of multiple layers of this in practice.
And we'll talk about it later because real-time transport visibility is very important. But for some company, the inbound part might be the most important thing. Do you consider when are my goods or my parts coming to manufacture my stuff? Or the other way, it's the outbound stuff. There's also, it's inbound logistics and outbound logistics, or the combination, or drop shipment and that kind of stuff. So that's even complicating this stuff even further.
Yeah, no, and you can combine it as well, eh? So you
Yep.
can indeed, software can help you to do drop off and a pickup, etc.
Yeah. I hope yeah, you're still around. But can you tell me a bit more about the possible improvements? So
Ready for? Sorry, can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you right now. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, the impact that it can have if you automate those flows is quite significant, and it depends, of course, a bit on how your business is set up today. But for sure, one important um, driver that many companies realize when they manage their communication more automatically and have really all the data at their fingertips and being shared with customers or stakeholders is reducing the questions, right? So it's no longer a black hole where you order something and then hope that your customer receives it at the agreed time slot, but you can actually follow and let them know. So I think that's a key driver for a lot of real-time visibility projects. But of course, there's many more, like the reduction of the detention and demurrage costs, or the better performance management of your carriers and forwarders if you have a much better view and reporting on are they on time and in full every time? Yeah, and those, I will not go through all of them, but I think another, certainly in Europe, more important one is the CO2 reporting, right? Knowing exactly what the distance is that you're traveling, which truck or vessel is using it, allows you to also determine the related CO2 emissions. So that's also an important part that companies in Europe try to solve.
Yeah. And if you look at this, 8 improvements, by route and transport visibility, where can AI and machine learning play the biggest role, in your opinion?
Yeah, so the in how I structure it in my mind is AI is helping us to facilitate users to interact with the
Mhm.
data. So it's to if you have a question, you no longer need to have a sort of almost search query, but you can actually talk with it, or have sort of a more common text like we're speaking here, and let the software find what you're looking for. So that's one part. And the other very strong part, we'll get to some concrete examples of that also later, is, let's say, on the exceptions where something is going wrong, the ability for AI to detect and to help solve those issues is really helps to improve the overall performance and the number of tracked shipments, and the, let's say, the time when you get an alert on that.
Mhm. On the other hand, I also see some possibilities for machine learning, considering expected time of arrival. If you have seen, how accurate you were in the previous tracks, you can have a better, forecasting of an ETA, considering all the things happening in during transport.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, those are, I think, the ETA calculations that we use, but also similarly for routing challenges in supply chain, or consolidation and load building. I think
Mhm.
those are traditional areas where we're using, let's say, forms of AI and machine learning typically to optimize and calculate the best ETA. And we're now going through a phase where we are re-evaluating and sometimes adding new AI capabilities to either do it quicker
Mhm.
in some cases, or better. Both occur. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do see, I think that in logistics, especially in route optimization, the broadest sense of AI has been applied already for 10, 20 years already. It's with the rise of Gen AI in the last 2 years that has been accelerating the awareness of AI in a broader sense. And then we talk about chatbots and prompts and that kind of stuff, and the visualization part, the easiness of that. But in a sense, under the hood of the Descartes software, AI in optimization and that kind of stuff, it's already happening for 10 years or more.
Yeah. 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 Certainly. I mean, for routing, if you think about, indeed, you have, let's say, again, those 1,000 orders, 100 trucks, and you need to deliver and optimize how you're going to do that. That's not something that you would like to do in your Excel sheet. So yeah, we have for a long time algorithms that are really strong in solving those types of issues. But yeah, with the new AI capabilities, there's yeah, much more that we can do.
Okay. If you go on and dig deeper, let's talk about the communication in the transport process. How does it look like, and what kind of things do you see happening over there?
Yeah, it's not always the most sexy part, but it is the baseline, right? It's really the communication between parties, and there's still many manual activities that companies are doing when they communicate with their carriers and forwarders, which is not required. So um, we have a huge network, and we'll show a little bit of that later, where we have lots of, and literally hundreds of thousands of forwarders and carriers connected. So plugging in, let's say, our system with the ones that you're using is really a huge benefit, as we can, yeah, directly send bookings, we can validate, and we have, again, validation rules, for example, on the type of data that's in the system. but we also have now more algorithms detecting anomalies, either in response times or other issues that can happen of that data. Yeah, and having that automatic data exchange between you and your carriers increases the speed in which you can act or react to changes, as always happens in supply chain. Yeah, there's also tons of complexity, not only on the technical side on what carriers are using, but they have different mappings of data. And then there's regulations changes happening. So you constantly need to change that. And having a partner that's managing all of that complexity really helps you, makes it much more efficient because we're using that for many companies. So for us, it's pretty makes a lot of sense from a business case perspective to reuse those connections. And again, if you were then switching, it also helps if you have a partner that's already connected to a certain carrier or forwarder, so you can easily switch to another one if needed.
If I look at this slide on the left-hand side, you see the environment of the cargo owner, say a manufacturing company, a multinational with an ERP system. In a lot of the cases, these manufacturing multinationals have more than one ERP instance. They have probably more because of mergers and acquisitions. So on the left hand side, you see some manufacturing companies, and then you see Descartes. I can imagine, with the announcement of this tariffs, that things are changing rapidly. So what is the impact of these tariffs, and what do you see in your environment? How companies could respond and should respond, and how does it relate to what you see at this graph?
Yeah, because indeed, this is a picture here for one company, but then you can multiply with, let's say, we have on the slide had more than 20,000 customers, more than hundreds of thousands of carriers and forwarders connected. So we see a huge amount of data flows, which actually represent transports. Um, and we are also publishing every month reports on certain insights that we have, and we have a specific solution that also helps customers if they want to have more detailed insight for their industry or for their competitors or customers. And of course, lately, there's lots of disturbances in the force, I would almost say,
Yeah.
in the transport flows with front loading.
Yeah.
Typically, the last months of 2024, we saw a significant increase of volumes from Europe to the US. And now lately, of course, with the tariffs, there's also in some cases very steep declines that then from one day to the next might go away if a tariff is being postponed. So it's a very dynamic situation currently. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at now here, you see this one example of a cargo owner with a lot of carriers and a lot of different kind of communications, different formats, etc. If you look at it on a broader perspective, what do you see as the common benefits to connect this all?
Yeah, that I think it's and that's valid for indeed for the cargo owners and for the carriers or forwarders. I would say it starts often with a cost reduction because you automate activities, right? So that's a very tangible thing that you can often quite accurately determine up front even. The other part is you better serve your customers. So there's so much more data that you can share with your customers on when things are arriving and how quick you can respond to a change. So that's certainly also a great point. Yeah, and then with that, let's say, increased data quality, less issues, there are often also benefits that are a bit not directly always measured, but they also impact a business. So there's a diverse set, and it can be really significant. There's cases where lots and lots of manual activities have become redundant after connecting to the network and automating all the data flows.
Yeah. And if you look at this slide on the left hand side, you see the cargo owners, manufacturing companies, but also retailers. I see Best Buy. I think in a retail environment, you're heavily depending on inbound flows, especially when you have promotions coming up, and it's springtime and summertime. People want to improve their homes, etc. So there's a lot of um, uh, benefits depending on where you are in the supply chain. Mostly downstream near the customer, or more upstream in the raw materials and the manufacturing environment. Do you see on the left hand side? You see all kind of logos of cargo owners. Do you see any commonalities where you have the most benefit? Is it upstream or downstream, or where do you see it's most happening and most of the requests coming from?
Yeah, so I would say let's say if I look at it or split it in two parts, right? So let's say the automated communication, the ability to really send messages and receive messages, so doing a booking, share documents. I think a requirement or a necessity for all companies doing a decent amount of volume of transport. Um, if you look at the real-time visibility part of it, right, and really tracking in detail shipments, there are of course some companies that require, let's say, more attention than others, either being it valuable goods, perishables, but also for that group, it has been expanding in the last, well, 5 to 10 years, as some maybe had it as a front runner, but now I think even if you're just shipping simple products, the demand also increases as it's becoming more and more a hygiene factor, that you just want to know when exactly is my stuff arriving, even though it might not be a critical product for at that moment.
Yeah. And if you look at on the right hand side, you see 3PL companies, and some of them have a more 4PL kind of role. But still, they rely on your kind of system, whereas some of them have also their own system. They provide insights and visibility for their customers.
Yep. Yeah, but I think as you indicated, some of them, let's take C.H. Robinson, they have thousands of carriers that they work with, right? So in
Yeah.
essence, they are not that different from a cargo owner in some ways. And
Mhm.
they also want to have a clear view across all of the carriers that they are using, and potentially share that data with their customers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. And if you look, you already mentioned you have all kind of well, companies involved. Maybe you can state what kind of companies and how many are they, and how do you connect it all?
Yeah, and this is really something where you can see that we've been in this game for really a long period, and we've been building this network, and we're still building it. There's more than 2,000 carriers being added every month to the network. Um, but it's a diverse set of types of companies that we connect with benefit for both sides, right? But for sure, it's let's say all the transport companies, either they're focused on parcel or truck or ocean or air. But there's also customs that we have connected, lots of ports and terminals that are connected. We shared already earlier the 2 million, let's say, apps that we have connected to our network. And lots of these groups have already have that connection with us for a long time, right? If we think about airlines, they decided 20 years ago that they don't want to build thousands and thousands of connections with all their customers. They had a few, and they said, well, if you want to have data from us, then you need to talk with one of the companies that's already connected. And well, we are the biggest still with those direct connections. So all the, let's say, new companies, new real-time visibility providers, they need to use one of those existing and get the data from us, or one of the few others that are out there.
Yeah,
So that's a benefit in this network. If you saw the technologies that are needed to communicate, it's really, really complex capability. It's not a sort of a software feature that you have and then it just works. It requires constant maintenance changes to adhere to new regulations. And I think that's why well-known TMS vendors like SAP and Oracle, they don't have this network. They have an offline solution. And at the same time, right, the new real-time visibility players, they don't do the communication. They only do the real-time visibility. So it's it's a complex thing to manage, but also has a lot of added value for our customers.
Yeah. Regarding, these new players on real-time transfer visibility, they gathered normally in a few years ago, they gathered this information from the 3PL companies, the carriers. But since the last few years, it's also mentioned here, you get all kind of data from telematics within the trucks. So you have a more detailed updates from trucks, where they are, etc., or ships, whatever. So the telematics is I think one of the breakthroughs in the last few years to get this data from this area.
Yep. Yeah. No, for sure. That helps to track those trucks. Yeah.
Yeah, and and because I think I spoke to a CEO of one of the biggest manufacturers of toys, and he said, a few years ago, this accuracy was not good enough because of you had blind spots, and now with telematics, etc. In the last few years, we have gained a lot of visibility on a more detailed level. But moving on, I think this is the connection with all this kind of parties involved. But when you drill down about the messaging, because if you track down what is the process of ordering some stuff and let's transport it. So what are the tricks in all these messages?
Yeah, and indeed, and this is, let's say, the domain where it really takes stamina to get through and to have this set up. As we're trying to show here is a very, very high level view of the type of messages that the network, let's say, exchanges, or that cargo owners actually exchange with carriers and forwarders. Because every transport requires a booking request, either a confirmation or rejection of that, or it needs to be replanned. And depending on the type of transport, certain documents that need to be exchanged, right, for ocean VTM or shipping, or others for the other transport modes. Then there's the part, indeed, the real-time states or ETA data that you can get from the carriers and the forwarders, right? If that's valid, certainly for parcel, etc., it's useful to have those data points as well. And of course, the invoice part also really important. So there's many different message types, with each of them dozens of fields that then might be different per carrier, per country, per transport mode. So you can imagine that there's a huge amount of complexity that is actually managed in that whole network, if you manage this across hundreds of thousands of companies. And that's also the reason why yes, most of the companies out there do not have that capability themselves. It just takes so much time and effort and expertise to keep it up and running. At the other hand, if you want to do effective and efficient transport, you need to be able to communicate with all of your carriers and forwarders.
If you look at this, you have different kind of messages, and you see a flow of messages from booking request to invoice. Well, there is a lot of talk about AI lately, and it's now the new hype is agentic AI. It's an agent, an AI agent is booking stuff for you, and maybe it's automated for 80-90%. That's the new thing around in IT. If you look at this order of messages, do you expect agentic AI is flying within months or weeks or years? What do you expect, and how could you apply this kind of new ways of AI, agentic AI, in this field?
Yeah. No, and I think what's really exciting now is that, just to take an example on where something is not going as expected, right? So either a document or a message is missing,
Mhm.
and we now have actual solutions live where agentic AI is so well, they sound like humans. They call either a truck driver or somebody at a carrier and ask about something that's missing, right? Might be proof of delivery or for example, the mobile app that we discussed before that's not being installed. And the ability for AI to detect, it's maybe the easy part, but then to interact and really engage and try to fix it. Today is completely different versus just a few months ago, right? With the LLMs coming up, we have so much more capabilities to actually interact from our side, from a machine with a human at the other side, trying to remedy and fix the missing data element. So that's a
Yeah.
very exciting domain that we're just scratching, to be honest. Now we have a few live, there's a few tests going on, but much more to come.
Yeah. So there's a comment from one of the people in the audience, struggling how AI could help with TMS, and maybe in the next few slides we get some answer to it. Maybe you can explain a bit more what we see here. This is a control tower, so explain what we see and how real-time transport visibility will play a role in all this.
Yeah, and it is always difficult because for me, certainly the automated communication or real-time visibility should prevent you from having to look at the screen. But if we want to discuss it, it does help to illustrate, let's say, the data that you have or that your system has and can use for actions. So of course, let's say in the baseline, a control tower, knowing where all your shipments are and if they are on time and what might be causing a delay and how you can fix it. That's the key of managing your transport. So this view demonstrates that. You can easily see just at a glance sort of overall how you're performing. Of course, the interesting part, and we don't have sufficient time today, is then how you can use the data to automatically inform the ideally the systems that need to know, right? That maybe a forwarder that needs to pick up something that gets a message that it's either later or earlier, and they need to change their plans, or the users or customers that they need to change their expectation. And this is, of course, very important for companies that have specific goods that require a lot of attention to unload or to be installed when arriving at a certain location. Um, but like I said before, we now see that almost all companies really see this as a necessity. They just want to know for their internal stakeholders and also for the customers when the goods will be arriving. And the number of notifications and types of messages that you can derive from this data is huge. So it's a great benefit for our customers and our customers' customers.
And if I look at it, this screen dump, when you look at this map, you see these red dots between the green dots. These are possibly, hopefully, the exceptions and and the warnings. But I like these maps, and I think also AI and Gen AI is the world of more visualizations. Usually, supply chain software, logistics software is Excel on steroids. So the lower half of the screen is Excel kind of look, whereas the upper part is more visualized in maps. It's more understandable. It's more relatable. I think that's also one of the benefits we will see of it all. And the next thing, you have also an example of CO2 emissions and reporting on that matter.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the data elements that that you can create and also build based on the data that you have tracked, right? So when for let's take ocean for an example, right? We can see which vessel it's on, what's the length of the shipment, and we can even calculate, and depending on the vessel, on the engine type, the estimated CO2 emissions. So there's lots of data that's now available that can help you to determine the CO2 emissions across the different transport modes. Of course, each with its own, let's say, ways of measuring and calculating. But it's one benefit which, yeah, although it's a little bit less hot indeed the most recent months, it's certainly important for a lot of European companies to manage.
And one thing, getting back to the question, how can AI improve TMS? A few slides earlier, you mentioned, it's a complex world, and to connect all the dots and all this kind of different kind of information, that's one thing. And if you establish this way of working, very efficient and hopefully no touch and no errors, that's one thing. That's the baseline, I would say. But getting into the future, I think, and this is a great example you're showing here. For the future, we want to have choices. You want to have scenarios. What are our options? This is option A, this is B, this is a carbon emission A, and this is a carbon emission B. Let's take the two. So I think we're moving now in the phase that we are creating options with our systems, and then we can have choices. And maybe further down in the future, we can automate that part. But I think, creating options and visualize it like this is the new world, and that's already, a huge step forward.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, you indeed optimize based on spend, on emissions, on maybe important customers, right? There's so many different angles that you can take to optimize. So that's a great improvement. And the other, I think, what's also important that you do this as a cargo owner or as a forwarder using multiple carriers. You do this in a uniform, explainable way, right? So there's the same type of data is being used, the same methods are being applied to come to the numbers. So in that sense, it's a fair assessment on the actual emissions.
Yeah. And another thing is security. You have different kind of physical security, and you have also digital security. Maybe you can explain a bit about those things.
Yeah, I think as we get a lot of data, we're also increasing the ability to counter fraud, and certainly for the companies that are transporting high value goods, we see an increase in various forms of fraud, actual cargo theft, or also sort of financial uh, criminal activities, and well, there's lots of yeah, new features where also AI is helping us to detect something is going right wrong, right? So there might be very simple use cases where we see, for example, in some cases that location pings are at the same distance at the same time a few times in a row, which is very, very strange if they're exactly the same. So we're analyzing constantly billions of data points on location, for example, to scan for that type of anomalies. There's also other more complex things that we look for in our data to detect, yeah, potential fraud. And again, with unfortunately, I think would say with the rise of investments in the weapons industry, there's also more demand for specific route deviation type of alerts
Yeah.
that's relevant for our customers.
Yeah. Of course, we have seen last Monday with Operation Spiderweb going on in Russia. That also the Western world has woken up to see where do you see strange truck movements around airfields, that kind of stuff. So that's the world we're getting in, unfortunately. But that's another thing. But on the good side, you have also more special transport.
Yeah, there, I think it's always good to understand. I mean, there's sort of we have a lot of standard ways to track, but indeed there's now and then there are special transports which require special attention, and that's available. This was an example, I think, of two pandas that required a special attention on in terms of how they're being tracked and measured and monitored to make sure their environment in terms of shocks and temperature was as it needed to be. But of course, the same applies to some pharmaceutical companies or high tech companies that have specific demands on how they need their products to be transported. So there's lots of different sensors that we use. We have the sensors label printing, for example, for some of our customers that you can apply on a very small or larger shipment as well? Is it sort of a sticker, type sensors that are being used?
Mhm.
So many ways to also have somewhat more special cargo being tracked on a very detailed level.
And as you see here, this is a picture of pandas being transported by air, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it was to Hong Kong, the two pandas. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I know a company, Coppert, they have a bio-based crop protection. Basically, they transport hummingbees, boxes of hummingbees around the world to export to agricultural areas in Africa and US. And they also see use of a lot of sensors to track if it's on time and air and that kind of stuff. I get a question for the audience, that might be relevant in this part. Is Descartes already using metadata like weather, geopolitics, natural disasters, price, tariff fluctuation to create routing suggestions?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we for sure. And in our routing solutions, there's lots of data points that we include. Also, sometimes like weight of a truck that's not allowed on every road, etc. So there's many constraints and elements that are being used for routing. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, there are, like you said, banned areas, no-fly zones and that kind of stuff, and also restrictions to using certain countries for rail or air, that kind of stuff. That's also. Uh, Now we get to the final part, more into AI, and I see some questions over there. Maybe you can see what you see as the potential ways of improving with AI.
Yeah, and this is difficult in a sense that I mean we could spend a full hour, a full day on AI, right? But I think just to try to summarize it a bit, and we already discussed before. There's various domains, and if we think about ETAs or routing or consolidation load building, that we've been using, I would say more algorithms or machine learning for a very long time. But certainly, let's say the last year, we've been using more and more the natural language processing (NLP) technologies.
Hmm.
And I think those are really great in either helping us to understand text or spoken words from humans. So I think that's a great new capability that we apply on various ways, right? I think, for example, if one of our solutions indeed that shares a lot of those transport data with our customers, you can imagine there's so many slices and dices you can make out of the data that was typically a sort of database query type of interaction that you had, and now you can talk or type just as my 12-year-old son would do, and ask, hey, how many bananas were shipped from India to New York last week, and then it automatically shows you that, right? So the interaction that you can have today is much easier for a lot of solutions. I think, and it's also combined with the LLMs, the ChatGPT and Copilots getting more advanced or technology behind.
Hmm.
And I think the third party agentic AI is where we really train bots or AI agents for specific tasks. Yeah, and I think those options will be really, we're now I think have dozens of use cases, and just let's say the first set are being rolled out, but there's so much more to come for those,
Hmm.
as there's so many opportunities.
And, do you have specific examples of these kind of pilots or applications of agentic AI where you have already applied this? Well, a few of them already.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the what's maybe good to remember, on one hand, it's relatively easy to set it up. On the other hand, it does require training, right? So it's not really like, hey, I have my ChatGPT instance and I make that available, and then within 5 minutes we have a good AI agent. Um, but I think that one of the concrete examples, I think it's also on the next slide, is for example where indeed we have tracked shipments. Somehow the ELD, the telematics device, is not working. We have the the mobile app that might be used, and it's not ready. And we used to send sort of a text or an alert, but the conversion, let's say, of making it ready is not always that good. Now we have an AI agent calling the truck driver, um, being able to switch the language, right? Another nice benefit of having an AI agent, it talks many languages,
Hmm.
and to discuss with the truck driver on, hey, what's the issue? Can we make sure that the mobile app is up and running? Um, yeah, and I think that's a really powerful tool. Certainly because we have hundreds of thousands of shipments also with the mobile app that we can then suddenly start tracking that we could not get tracked before. But also the use case, for example, for a proof of delivery that's missing, right? For some companies, they need to have a proof of delivery before they can invoice.
Yeah.
If it's missing, yeah, we can have now an AI agent call and make sure that we get it as soon as possible. So there's so many of sort of similar challenges that we have on data that might not be there, and we now can have a machine contacting a human to make sure it's there.
Yeah.
It's really, yeah, really fantastic.
So, what actually to explain agentic AI, 5 to 10 years ago, you had robotic process automation. Basically, you visualize what's in the back office, what kind of process do you have, and basically how can you improve it. So maybe you see that there's an email coming in, and then you type it into your ERP system, and basically RPA, robotic process automation, is automating that process. So instead of manually typing from an incoming email into your ERP, that is now being automated by RPA, robotic process automation. But that is very static in a sense. Okay, this is what this robotic process automation is doing, and then you don't have to retype an email into your ERP or other way around, sending out an email, etc. Agentic AI is more flexible, where you say when this is happening, you do this. When that is happening, you do some other things. So basically, agentic AI, like you explained, if there's something missing in a process, a confirmation of receipt, whatever, proof of delivery, then you're doing this. So basically, agentic AI is more flexible. It's more responding to an actual situation.
Yeah, for sure, right? And I actually implemented RPA at several big companies. Well, I think 10 years ago, and I mean it was a great tool and it's a great thing to just automate very standard processes. But the way that an AI agent can interact with a human, and I've listened into some of the calls with a truck driver, right? They're
Hmm.
driving, they might not speak English very well. I mean, they they almost have discussions about the weather. There's quite a lot of stuff, and the AI agent is able to handle that, right? It's not like you need to have a specific field in this format and then it can be copied and pasted and translated in another system. No, it's able to actually have a conversation. Um, yeah, it really and it sounds superhuman. And we're now I recently we released version I think 2 or 3 of our AI agent that's interacting with truck drivers. It's even more. It's like whoa. And yeah, and other stuff like the languages, right? We sometimes have now questions on, hey, I also have a business in Thailand. Do you have people that speak that language, etc. For an AI agent, that's relatively easy to also communicate in that language. So it's really a nice step forward.
But I can imagine that you have to train this agent to make it work. But otherwise, it might not answer the questions of the truck driver in Vietnamese or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I said. It's as being at least a personal user of ChatGPT, I'm quite a big fan, and of Copilot. It seems like they know everything,
Yeah,
but I don't know. Maybe you encountered it as well. Sometimes they do have strange answers, right? I
yeah,
think last week it suddenly said I don't know which format, but it was Sunday, but it was actually Tuesday or something like that, and then it makes very stupid mistakes. Of course, you want to prevent that. So it's really important to train the agent. And we have a lot of data, and the another use case where we also use for customer support, right? When there's a question, that might be sort of an old school ticket. Yeah, you would like to have an interactive. We now have an AI agent interacting with humans when they have a question, and we trained that agent with hundreds of documents, thousands of example tickets and solutions, etc., to make sure that it is a meaningful and effective interaction. And of course, it will not solve all problems. Let's be honest. I mean, it's not yet so smart that it can solve everything, but it's a great step forward. And with the right training and setting up and the speed, also the performance. Still, when you talk to a person, you need to respond pretty quickly. So there's also some challenges around that. But once you get that solved, yeah, if you do it at scale, it has a huge impact on your business and in the end, dus on how happy our customers are.
So we have 5 minutes left, and I see some questions coming in, and I have a question myself. Do you also see that AI is applicable to for the onboarding of new carriers? Does it also help to make that easier?
Yeah, well, there's would say a long list of use cases that we now have where we think on the first batch, let's say we want to test it. There's some related to onboarding and making that go smoother. We've not yet have a real solution live in that domain.
Okay. In general, there's also a question from the audience. What do you see as the biggest challenge for the application of AI in your field?
Well, so I don't see so much challenges, to be honest. It's more a sense of it needs to mature, right? So yeah, and maybe that's a good point. There is some challenges that we also didn't mention that, but it's good to mention. There's notifying our customers or the people that we interact with that an AI is being used, right? So that's certainly sort of
Yeah,
yeah, the privacy or more moral, ethical dilemmas that people are scared on. Hey, where are we using AI for, and which data is being used for what
yeah,
type of analysis?
yeah,
So that's a challenge, not really a technical challenge, but more a legislation challenge, I would say, making sure that everybody is aware of what we're doing. Yeah, and the other challenge is more, yeah, we need to experiment more and more and mature the solution. So I mean, we're not what we're using today will be quite different from what we'll be using just a year from now. So there's lots of more development and improvements to be made, but we don't see a big roadblock.
Another thing is what I had a previous webinar, I think 2 months ago, about load building, and there are a lot of trucks still driving bit empty or almost empty. Do you see some opportunity also as Descartes to have an overview to combine flows to see, okay, where can we condense flows and to improve the loads of trucks, and then you can have recommendations on your side? Do you see some things on a meta level that you could see some improvements for lanes or transport on a meta level?
Yeah, so well, the I think the most common use case that we see now with our customers is that they combine import and export sometimes, in the sense that pickups and drop-offs are more and more being determined by one solution, so you can really combine the two and therefore win some efficiency. Um, the use cases where, let's say, across company things are optimized for cargo owners is I've not seen so much. Of course, on the forwarder side, there you can do that, right? So there we have
Yeah,
certainly
yeah, of course, yeah,
again routing opportunities that are also taking benefit from that side. Yeah.
yeah. But I can imagine you're sitting on a tons of data that you can make sense of it on a meta level in that case in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, but for now, most customers do not allow outside of their own domain their data being analyzed, right? So for most of the cases, we are using their data for their optimization, which
Yep.
in the case of some of the big forwarders might be across thousands of their customers, right? So it's still a lot to be optimized, but it's not yet being used on really the overall level, let's say.
I can imagine, with privacy and the security,
Yeah.
that sense. Yeah. All right, we're almost out of time. So the good news is after this, Elmer and myself will be available for 30 minutes in the virtual lounge. So we'll be sitting at table 1. So if you have some further questions or have interest to have a discussion with us, feel free to join us. It's quite easy to get a seat at this virtual table. And next, I have some links, for further information. So you see the link, the IT Supplement map that's available, the 2025 version. In the middle, we have also created a checklist for denied party screening. One of the, the lines, the solutions of Descartes. And on the right hand side, you see also a link to a demo for the real-time visibility solution of Descartes, and the contact details of Elmer. So with this, I would like to wrap up. And Elmer, thank you for joining.
Yeah, great to be here. Yeah.
And for the audience, thank you for your questions. Maybe way more to go, and this will not be the final things we have said about AI in supply chain and in the logistics world. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for listening, either live or the recorded version. As for now, I would like to say goodbye, and I hopefully see you in another Webinar Wednesday. Thanks for now, and bye-bye.